Since the age of 16, I've been a student, a cog in the corporate machine. I've helped small family businesses scale, and I've worked inside of partnerships across a variety of sectors. Every step of my journey over the past 23 years has provided me with some form of compensation, but the experience I've gained has been invaluable. Yet I can't tell you how many times I've put pen to paper to update a resume that captures my talents, skills, and experience in hopes that someone else will pay what I believe my experience is actually worth. 2020 ignited a fire in me that forever transformed my life. And for the very first time that I can consciously recall, my natural talents collided with my life experience in a way that allowed me to finally witness the value and impact I have to offer both individuals and corporations. And it was through this transformative season that I was able to find my voice and begin to forge something out of the intersection of my values, interests, and experience. Ma vie, which in French means life. It was also through this season that I became very aware of how I prefer to create and innovate, and that it doesn't look or feel like what many of the quote business experts are teaching. Because of this, I also learned to embrace that I'm a lone wolf, and I really do not want to build or sustain something that requires a team of people I need to manage or seek permission from. Therefore, collaboration is at the core and foundation of what I'm building. It is also, in my opinion, the only way to create a thriving, sustainable, and equitable economy. Not only does the cultivation of collaboration snuff out the cattiness of competition and comparison, it begins to heal the wounded feminine aspects of self where we project our own harmful and limiting beliefs onto others. Collaboration is also at the heart of a burgeoning Skillshare economy that allows you to take your equity and invest it into others in ways that pays you dividends, not only in money, but experience and relationships. Business incubators are no longer something reserved for Silicon Valley. Micro incubators are being created every day by venture builders, independent men and women who want to invest their values, interests, and experience in people who have brilliant ideas living within them, but are struggling to execute because of a knowledge, skill, or networking gap. Venture building is the precursor to venture capitalism, where instead of just injecting money into a business, you are investing your innate talent and sweat equity in exchange for a small percentage or predetermined payout. Which, if you really think about it, is not that different than receiving a paycheck from a business in exchange for your skills. It's just coming with a delayed gratification of monetary payment. The conversation today dives into what it means to be a venture builder and the importance of self-trust and intuition when deciding who and what to invest your valuable attention in. And we also dive into the many forms of abundance that becomes generated within this economic model. Jen Potter is a venture builder, ultrapreneur, speaker, and business leader, founder of EPIC47 and EPIC Mamas. Her mission is to help people grow their businesses and realize their ultimate potential. Her life purpose is to help inspire others to find their why and understand that we can be more than just a product of our environment. Whether you have an idea begging to be birthed into reality, skills and talents you're hoarding but not sure what to do with, or if you're just feeling unsatisfied with your current employment situation and are curious about what your next step could be, I know you will find inspiration inside of this conversation with Jen. Small disclaimer, our energy is palpable and you will absolutely feel it within the tone and speed of our conversation. I am so excited to introduce you to Jen because I know that this is one of those conversations that can fundamentally impact and change the trajectory of someone's life. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Grand Rising Experience wherever you're listening, or head to grandrisingexperience.substack.com. It really does help ensure that these valuable stories find those who need to hear them. And you can also subscribe at www.nicoleconnor.com to learn more about the portal membership and upcoming summits that you could attend both virtually or in person. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Let's dive in. I know last time we had chatted, you were talking, I think you had just finished running the Boston Marathon.
That's right.
And you were telling me at that time that you have like 7 or 8 businesses. I was on your website earlier, the EPIC47, which I love your mission of wanting to help 47 businesses kind of be up and thriving by 2047, which I have a feeling you are absolutely going to do. But what are the other 7 or 8 businesses that you have?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So right now I have 4 that I can legally talk about, and then I have 2 that are in NDA and 2 that are starting. Part of all of the things that I do, I'm a venture builder, which is why I start all of the other businesses, right? Like you said, with my mission and helping people. My goal is, like you said, to help 47 business owners thrive by 2047. But like I want to hit that goal way before then. I want to be able to help as many people as I possibly can. And it's not just starting a business, it's really being in their business and continuing to grow and beyond itself. And it's not just a day-to-day or paycheck to paycheck type of business. It's a business that's going to thrive. So that's where that really means something to me. The businesses that I currently own, so it's funny, I didn't do this on purpose. I'm wearing one of my t-shirts. It's inspirational apparel. So one of the first companies that I started was Beautiful Collective, and it's an inspirational t-shirt company for women to kind of always remind themselves when they're looking in the mirror to be themselves, to feel beautiful, to be unique, to really embrace who they are as a person. And I feel like it's hard sometimes as we start to get older and we have children and our attention kind of like steers away from us. So when I started this company, it was for myself. It was finding that within myself, because I know that I have that power now, but there are so many women that don't embrace that. So I started my first company, Beautiful Collective. And then from there, I started a, what's the word I'm looking for? Professional babysitting and nannying agency. And that started off as a date night babysitting company. And I was really excited about starting this company because it's different and it's unique. It's like a concierge babysitting company to that big.com website, where we're able to help handpick childcare providers for people in the community. My long-term goal was to create a nannying agency. I was like, we're going to put that in my 36-month plan. And I launched that company during COVID. So as soon as I started it, it literally shut down within weeks. And then I had to pivot. We started helping frontline workers and realizing that nanny placement was actually more of a thing. So from there, we launched the agency, and that's actually the biggest part of what we do. We handpick child care providers for families so they can feel comfortable knowing that we're doing all of the due diligence. So for every 12 people that we interview, the family might only see 1 or 2, just because that way we're really getting the cream of the crop, the person that's who is 75% match. So when they go to meet them, it's more likely that they're going to hire them. We've hired and placed over 700 child care providers in the past few years, and the number just keeps growing. So it's really amazing. And I can honestly say up until this point, I have done the final interviews on every single one of them. But with all of my businesses growing, I had to kind of hire an additional team to help with that. So I still get in and I jump in and I do all of the calls, but not as many as I would like to, just because we are growing so rapidly. From there, I started a cleaning company. During COVID, people were in their house. As they started to come out of the woodwork, they all realized that they've been in their house too long and it's dirty and they need somebody to clean it. So we launched a cleaning company, myself included. I have 3 kids and I needed someone to clean my house. So we started a cleaning company. That was one of the biggest learning experiences of my life. Owning a cleaning company is probably the hardest business I've ever owned. And that's because what I think is clean and what you think are clean are 2 completely different things. And that was a really big learning curve for me because, I don't see, certain things, but you may see certain things. So really getting into the nitty gritty of what people are looking for really helped me to figure out who my clients were. And then it also kind of helped me to like react to clients differently in all of my businesses. So it was really a great opportunity for me. From there, I started a consulting company. So I started a strategic consulting firm called EPIC47, which is my biggest company. And we do a lot of different things with that company specifically. So not only do I do strategic building, business consulting, I help people build their businesses, kind of like hand holding, right? I launched my venture building services through EPIC47, where if someone wants to start a business and they don't know how, I partner with them. So I become a small percentage owner of their company. And I really walk them through the process of being a business owner. And at the end, whether or not I stay on a small percentage or they buy me out or the contract ends, whatever that looks like at the end, because it's so different from everybody else, I can walk away confidently knowing that they're going to be a strong business owner, that I gave them all of the tools to succeed. So it's not like I'm just going to run their business and be like, here, good luck. I'm going to give them all the tools so they can be a business owner. Because some people may have some really great ideas, but they're really crappy at business. That's a learned behavior. Anybody can learn how to be a business owner, and myself included, which is why I started doing all the things I was doing. I didn't know how to run a business. So I started a t-shirt company and enrolled in a business like program that taught me how to run a business, but it started coming very natural to me. And all of the things that were important in business just all made sense to me. So it's why I started the consulting firm. And, through there, I talk about all of the things that I do. I speak all over the country about scheduling, time management. I talk about business and all of those fun things. So that in a nutshell is all of the things that I'm currently doing. Like I said, I do have a few NDAs out right now for a few other businesses.
Okay, I'm blown away right now because I don't believe in coincidences. And you just wrapped up in a very pretty package a conversation that I was having with a local business owner the other day who's very successful in their own right. And we were having just this conversation, and they couldn't understand why I was going to them for help or why I was asking them questions, because as far as they were concerned, I was miles ahead in terms of understanding, knowledge, resourcing. But it's that disconnect between perhaps foundational business knowledge and the application of like doing and putting your idea into motion. And it got me thinking the other day, because I was like, I'm kind of like the venture capitalist of skills in terms of I may not necessarily have the money injection to go in and help someone, but I have the knowledge, the resources, the know-how, and the research capabilities to be able to get something off the ground and do it very quickly. And I was thinking, like, this is a really undervalued and underutilized skill that I think a lot of people have. And it's how do you turn your own personal equity into capital? And that's exactly what you're doing with with Epic 47.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what a venture builder is. So, and when I first started doing that, I didn't know that the title existed. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, this is just what I do. I actually met with a venture capitalist and he's like, oh, you're really cute. You're like a poor man's version of a venture capitalist. I was like, yeah, that's me. That's me. Because my end goal is to become a venture capitalist. So that's my end goal, is to be able to turn around and help people financially. But I know that as I'm growing all of these businesses, I know that my knowledge is more valuable in this moment. And so my Epic 47 truly focuses on that knowledge base, because knowledge is money, right? At the end of the day, if we have someone who really wants to start a business, but they don't have money, well, how can I give you my knowledge and still make a return on profit, right? And so it was getting really creative, meeting with other people who do something similar, meeting with a lot of venture capitalists about, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I get there? A lot of venture capitalists, they start off because they have money already. So, the way that I'm kind of taking it is from the bottom up, but there's no wrong way in getting there. And we all have different skill sets. And, your skill sets are completely different than my skill sets, but they are going to help somebody else in business. And how can you be profitable? And the way that we set up our contracts, they're so different for every business that I work with, because some businesses may be super small and it might be a solopreneur who just, their profit isn't huge. But then I have other companies where the profit is a lot larger. So, when I get paid and how I get paid are structured into how we do the businesses.
you're opening the minds of quite a few people who are going to hear this, because money is a huge roadblock for a lot of people. And it's not just having the physical capital, it's also the money mindset behind it. And we often forget that our intrinsic value is in our knowledge and what we know how to do. It's not in the green that it materializes from that space. And what I'm hearing from you as well, as you were describing all of your businesses, that the businesses that you do have where you've built this foundational knowledge are all coming from your own personal needs and experiences as well. You were creating something that you needed, which we tend to do quite passively. I would say day in and day out, we're constantly problem solving for ourselves, or worse, we're doing it for someone else and not even understanding the inherent value in it. So why did you start these businesses in the first place? Why start the business instead of just outsourcing it or hiring someone to do it for you?
So that's a really great question. So the t-shirt business kind of started because I really wanted to start the babysitting company, but I didn't want anybody to know what I was doing because I was like, oh, this is unique. So I got to make sure that I keep it like, lock and key. And when I first wanted to do the babysitting company, we didn't have the capital to do it. I didn't have the knowledge to do it. And I knew that I was going to have to stop working a really good job in order to do it. So I was a financial analyst prior to doing this, and I love doing what I was doing, but kind of like what you said before, we're giving other people our knowledge and other people our capabilities. And while I don't discount that at all, I really love what I do, but at the end of the day there was like no like satisfaction in what I was actually doing. And I wanted to be a business owner. It runs in our family. Like, my dad was a business owner, but he was never successful. And I don't mean that like in a negative way, because sometimes he listens to this and I'm like, I really don't want to be putting him down. But he taught me that in order to be a successful business owner, I needed to learn the tool or get the tools in order to create my own success. My dad didn't really have a big education. He didn't come from a background that, really allowed that. And he was always really good at what he does. And he's still fantastic at what he does, but running a business is not his skill set. And every person he ever worked with running a business was not their skill set. You can have passion, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to ever make money. You're not going to ever get away from the thing that you were trying to do or trying to create. And so it was really important to me really early on to make sure that the skill sets were something that I understood, that I understood the financials. I mean, as a financial analyst, so I understood that, but like, making sure, every aspect of business was covered in order to create success. And then also knowing that like, I know I can't run all my businesses on my own. So the people that I hire have to be really good at what they do. So I don't have to micromanage, because I have to do a lot of delegation because I own so many businesses. And I was saying this earlier today in another meeting. I'm constantly turning on and turning off a hat because someone, I was introducing myself and I was like, wait a minute, who am I? And it was funny because I was like, oh, this is the business that I'm talking about. And someone called me out and they're like, it was really funny when you were like, who am I? Do you not know who you are today? And I was like, well, in the moment, what hat am I wearing? Because it's that constant, I'm doing this right now, but stop. Oh, wait, I'm a surf instructor at this moment. Wait, stop. I'm running a cleaning company. Wait, stop. I'm consulting someone else's business. Wait, stop. I'm helping someone find a babysitter. So it's this constant, turning on skill set that I really had to learn in order to be a successful serial entrepreneur. And I consider myself more an ultrapreneur at this point because I own so many businesses and I do so much, community outreach, and I'm heavily involved in the community. And that was a hat that I really hesitated putting on, was owning the title of being an ultrapreneur, because I'm like, oh, that just seems like I should be like super, super rich, right? And then I had to stop myself and go, wait, just because you don't, no matter what is in my bank account, that doesn't matter. My assets are in my skills, and they're in my businesses and in my employees, and spread throughout. And I had a similar conversation with someone earlier today who was talking about children, and I'll connect the two because it was funny because the words came out of my mouth. And he was like, he said he had 7 kids. And I was like, oh goodness, that's a lot of kids. And I was like, I can only imagine how much it cost you in diapers to have that many kids. And he was like kidding around. He's like, well, statistically speaking, he was like, by the time you're done raising a child, you will have spent over $200,000 per child. And he goes, I started doing the math. And he's like, and even with my stepchildren, he's like, we're up to 10 kids. He's like, I would be like a multimillionaire. I go, well, you are a multimillionaire because your money is your investment in your children. And it goes the same thing with your businesses. My skill sets, my knowledge, me helping somebody else create their business and watching their business grow, that is money. My money mindset has changed so drastically that I don't necessarily look at the bank account, because that comes when you don't focus. I mean, yes, you have to be sustainable and feasible, but at the end of the day, if you're focusing on growth and pure intentions, that comes naturally. It comes, I promise.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you really are shifting your valuation strategy, I guess you will, around your business, where you are actually looking as yourself as the asset of the business. And we don't do that enough. We're not the liability, we are the asset. And
Right.
it tends to be through conditioning and what we learn kind of in business school as well. You can, if you're listening to the wrong people, come to believe that you're the liability, and you're not, because the business
Right.
cannot function as it is without you. Now, gaps in knowledge can create hindrances and problems, but it's also your ability. Another asset is your ability to recognize those shortcomings and find ways to overcome them, whether, like you said, you're delegating or you're gaining the additional knowledge and know how to be able to elevate above the circumstances that are facing you. That's your gold. That is your not only the contribution that you're making to society, but it's also the legacy that you're implanting within your family as well, because those skill sets, be it through observation or through actively passing down to the other generations of your family, they're being absorbed and they're being inherited one way or another. And that's incredibly important. And it's something that we don't really think about enough, I think, right now, because again, education is something that we've outsourced. We've taken it out of the home, we've taken it out of the family, we've put it into these institutions, and institutions that people are coming out of with substantial amounts of debt, and now
So
finding
much
that, oh
debt.
my gosh, I'm still not employable. And how am I going to pay this debt? And then they're having to dig really deep into their own skill set and find a way to become a creator. Like, this creator economy right now is no joke.
Right.
And people have to really start learning how to rely on their street smarts and their institutional knowledge to be able to pull their essence out of them and offer it into the world. And I'm so intrigued by what you're doing right now, because you're at the forefront, I believe, of helping the creator. But like you said, you're not the venture capitalist, so you're not scary to approach, in the sense that you're not going to be necessarily asking for a lot of money up front. I don't want to say that you're not getting what you're worth, but when you see someone who is so much further ahead of you, when you look at the capital that they've accrued, it can become very daunting to go look for help in those spaces. Even those are
Absolutely.
sometimes the people that have all the money. So you
Yep.
become very approachable, and it becomes this beautiful uh, skill share, because you're going to learn from your clients, they're going to learn from you, but it's equitable. You will also get what you are worth.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's being, like you said, it's being smart with who I'm working with, I think is really important too, right? So, I have to hand select who I'm willing to invest my time and energy in. And knowing that up front, I may not be making anything until that business starts, right? So I have to invest, what they call, sweat equity, right? And for me, sweat equity involves doing a decent amount of work up front, not knowing if that business is actually going to take off. And I have to be very cautious with who I'm picking to be that business partner, because I can invest a lot of time and nothing's going to happen. But on the flip side, right? You said something about, learning from the person that you're working with. Every person that I work with is teaching me something new. And so for me, it's never a loss, even if that business never gets off the ground running, which that's obviously never my intentions and it hasn't happened yet. But if I'm meeting with someone and they're teaching me a new skill set, now I have something else to bring to the table. Every business that I've been a part of, it's taught me something new. And, one of the businesses that we're launching by the end of the year, it's a pretty big company. And because of what that my business partner taught me, I sat in another business meeting, and this is like, I believe in the universe. I don't believe in coincidences. From the moment me and you had a conversation, like I felt like I was like flying high after our first conversation. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're like spirited souls. And because we're so similar. And when you mentioned like, hey, I'm doing something similar, I'm like, well, no coincidence, right? And so I was sitting in like this business meeting, and I keep putting into the universe, I'm going to start a business in California. Like I'm looking at uh, real estate, and I'm looking at all of these things, but I have a really hard time saying which business I was going to start. Do I start, one of my other companies that's already here? Do I do that out there? How do I do this? I'm not sure, but I'm going to let the universe kind of bring it all together. And I was sitting in a meeting with somebody else, and we were having a conversation, and this person wants me to jump on and be a partner with them. And this is something that I am so not familiar with, but I understand the mission and I understand why they're doing it. And I was like, from our first conversation, I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be your business partner. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to help you in something else. I'm like, but we keep coming back to one another. And I've had a really hard time with saying, this is something that I want to invest my time and energy in because I'm not sure about my part in it, but I keep coming back to it. And then we had our last conversation in person, and like you could feel like the synergy, and we're talking, and even my daughter was with us, and she's like, Mom, she has such a bright light about her. Like I really like her. You need to work with her. And I thought that was really funny that my daughter was telling me about this person. But then she was telling me what she needed. And then she's like, but I need X, Y, and Z for this business. And my eyes just like lit up. And I was like, well, are you willing to have a conversation with someone else who has a very similar business? And she's like, absolutely. I go, well, the company that I am launching at the end of this year, this is what we're doing. And her eyes were like ginormous. And it was so funny because she's like, oh my God, like you're doing this. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, maybe this is what it is. And I called my business partner afterwards, and I was like, hey, just to let you know, like we're gonna have a conversation. She's like, oh my God, this is what this is. She's like, sign me up for it. Maybe I'm supposed to move to California. I'm like, I'm here for it. And so it was this really amazing opportunity that I don't know if I would have had that if I wasn't already starting something else. You know what I mean? Because it taught me a whole different skill set, a whole different business. But the business that I'm creating is actually helping me to be a part of another business. So it's very interesting.
I think it's really important what you said there about kind of getting out of your own way and trying not to assign or prescribe a plan to what it is that you wanted, leaving it open and allowing the universe to show you what you needed to see. That is so important. And it's not woo woo, and it's not like hokey pokey. That is really important because
It is.
you hear that saying, like, if you buy a yellow car, you're going to see a yellow car everywhere. We will program our minds to see only what it is that we want to see. And when you leave the ability to basically look into the void, if you will, and just let things be present, you stop hearing through an agenda, you stop seeing through an agenda, and you never know what's going to spark that inspiration. And for me, inspiration is to be in spirit. So you are just allowing
Mhm.
yourself to be guided to hear what you need to hear and see what you need to see when you need to see it. And it might not even be right away. I often
Right.
say, like, once you hear something, you can't unhear it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So we're always constantly
Right.
planting seeds in ourselves and others. And that's kind of where I'm at in business, where it's like, I'm not here to determine like the readiness or the pace of your journey, but I'm going to plant a seed. And when you're ready and when it feels right in your heart, you're going to find your way back. Like I'm always saying, like I'm playing the long game with kind of everything that I do, where I know it's not
Always.
necessarily going to happen right away. I'm out of that instant gratification mode, which I found when I was working. I also worked in the finance industry as well, and it's very like go go go, and we're looking in terms of quarters instead of years usually, and it
Hmm.
always felt a little short-sighted to me. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And the large audience, a large part of my audience here are what I like to call soulpreneurs. So they tend to be very spiritually based. They have a medicine that they're bringing to the world in one way, shape, or form. But it also can come through what I like what you often hear as like the wounded healer mindset, which
Right.
is what you're doing has such immense value to someone else that you almost feel guilty for charging for it because it should be free. And
Right.
huge problem. And I have a feeling it's not just within this industry, but I feel like those are probably some barriers that you see coming up in some of your partnerships.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that, right? And listening to you talk, and you're hitting all those things. And I think this is it happened in our first conversation too, where I'm a firm believer in the universe. I'm a firm believer that those things do come up. You see it, it can't be unseen, right? Just like you said. And the more you need to see it, the more that you're going to see it, right? So the universe is constantly giving us these cues as to where you should be, when you should be there. We choose whether or not we're going to listen to them or ignore them. And the more we start to listen to our intuition, because everyone's like, feel it in your gut, like that's real. Like if you feel a certain way, follow that intuition, follow that instinct. Everything that I do is instinct based. Every business that I have is instinct based. That's the babysitting company what started that way, where when I pair people up, it's based off of how the child care provider makes me feel as a parent. And if there's someone that I think I trust, that's who I'm going to interview with a family and based off of their personality. So I always consider myself a matchmaker. And it was always like an inside joke between me and my husband was, he's like, you should be getting paid to pair people up. And I'm like, oh, I feel really guilty doing that, right? Because I did. And that it was that mindset. Well, I do this naturally, but why am I going to charge people to do that? And now instinctively in business, that's what I do. As a venture builder, I pair people with the resources that they need to grow a business. Well, I should be getting paid for that, right? You do feel guilty, but I base everything off of projections and numbers. So every partnership that I have is so different, like I said to you before. And because of not necessarily guilt, but because I am a firm believer that if you structure things ways that deem appropriate, you will get that that will come back to you. So, the bigger businesses that make more money, it's structured based off of their financial projections. The smaller businesses, yes, I have to make money, so we structure around that, but they may be getting charged a little bit less, and not because it's not fit or it's not fair, but because the way that their income is coming back to them, right? So it's always being conscious of the amount of money that's being played with. And for me, it's funny because I have this really weird relationship with money. I don't look at it as though of importance. And it's I don't know where that came from. And maybe because I was a financial analyst, I worked in, like the hundreds of millions of dollars, like all of the numbers that I was working on, it seemed like it was so like it wasn't tangible because it was so much money. And when I started to realize the value of money and the value of knowledge and realizing that, they're interchangeable, that the way that I really approach money is very different. And I feel if more people understand that, money is just paper and that it's transactional, if you can really focus on what you have to give, the get comes back. Like for me, like I feel like it comes back so differently. And like we said, in different types of assets, it might come back differently. It might come back in a new business opportunity. You know what I mean? So it's invaluable.
Yeah, and it's energy and it's a reflective tool and it shows you what you believe you're worth. And
Right.
not based on what you're actually accumulating, but in the ask and what you're willing to charge, in what you're willing to charge for and not charge for. Um,
Hmm.
it sets up a really interesting dynamic, and it's something for myself that I've really been diving into a lot because our money stories are typically inherited and not just
Hmm.
from what we experienced in our environment, but also what we've literally inherited through our RNA and through our bloodlines and through our ancestry. So it becomes this very interesting topic that's also very taboo. And like you, I was working in high net worth finance. I happened to be offshore, which was a very interesting experience. Clients worth over $500 billion. And you start to see that many zeros, and you're like, this doesn't make sense. And then you realize that literally all the money is on paper, it's on documents with signatures. And you're like, well, that's really interesting. And then you also realize that they don't have a physical attachment to money. They own nothing and they love it in the way that everything is structured. but
Mhm.
also they know when to cut their losses. So they have no problem bankrupting something. There's not an attachment to, oh, okay, this isn't working. I'm going to let it go. But we end up having such a deep personal attachment and investment to what we're creating, not only
Right.
because like it's our baby and we've put so much sweat equity into it, but there tends to be a lot of shame around what we can perceive as a failure as well. And it's a topic that I've been diving into with a lot of the business owners and soulpreneurs that I am in contact with, because when you realize that the wealthier parts of society, they don't really give a shit about that. They have no problem. Like I said, they understand the sunk cost bias and they'll be like, okay, I'm out. See you later. Something new. And until
Right.
we can start to adopt that mindset as well, I'm not saying go around and bankrupt everything you have, but play smarter, not harder. Like we have to try and wrap our mind around that as well. And a lot of that's just that deeply ingrained money
It's
mindset
hard.
programming.
It's so hard. And it's funny because, being in that blue collar mindset and talking to other people, there's a lot of shaming in people in that middle class that are like, well, the rich just keep getting richer. Well, because they're smart when it comes to changing around their business structure. It also is a form of jealousy, right? Because it's that projection. Well, I want what they have. Why did they have it and I don't have that? Well, stop worrying about what other people have and start learning how to create it. I came from nothing. Like I literally grew up in the ghetto. Like I said this to someone a few weeks ago. I was at a party and we were talking about food and why I did one of the initiatives that I did. And it was, helping raise money for a local food bank. And we were talking about that. And we were talking, and I was saying, well, if it wasn't for the food pantries, like we wouldn't have eaten and et cetera, et cetera. And then we were talking about reheating food in the microwave. This is where this came from. It was reheating food in the microwave. And this is someone who was born into somewhat privilege, and they came from money, so they never had to go without because their parents worked really hard. So they're very well off. And I made a comment and saying why I don't eat reheated food in the microwave. And he looked at me and he's like, well, why not? And I was like, well, one year for Thanksgiving, my dad actually made a turkey in the microwave. And I don't know if you know what that looks like, but it actually turns out gray. It does cook, but it actually comes out gray because it's being cooked in the microwave. And he looked at me like a deer in headlights and he's like, well, why didn't you just cook it on the stove? And I was like, because we had no gas. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we ran out of propane and had no money. So we had to cook everything in the microwave. And he just kind of like looked at me and like cocked his head and didn't know what to say and like changed the subject. And my husband knew why I said what I said, but people just don't understand because they never had to go through it. And for me, like I know what it was like to be that poor person who lived in poverty and who had to figure out a way to do something different. My dad was creative. He cooked dinner in the microwave. Kudos to him for figuring out how to feed us, even though we didn't have the means to be able to do it. And at that point, he had to be creative to come out of that, right? And it was through that survival mode that taught me how to do things differently to create the life that I wanted to live. So if you want to be that venture capitalist, what are you going to do to be that person? That's my end goal. I woke up, I was doing a keynote and I woke up one morning and my first response, and I'll apologize for swearing in advance, but I was like, oh shit, how did I get here? And I'm finally in a place where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like 5 years ago, I was wondering how I would become a venture capitalist, and I'm halfway there. Like I'm having conversations with people who are making $500 million, and they're telling me their strategies on how they got to where they are. And yes, some of them were born into it and some of them weren't. But what's the strategic planning that I need to do in order to create the life that I want to live? Anybody could do it. Instead of projecting, figure out how you're going to put yourself in that place. And I feel like the more we manifest and the more, opportunities that we create for ourselves, we're going to continue to learn and grow. For me, I want to learn, I want to grow, and my knowledge and, I think wanting to help other people help me along the way.
I think what's really important about what you just said too, and it is about surrounding yourself with the people that can help you gain the knowledge to get there. And it's interesting because I think it was like Jim Rohn had said, you are the equivalent of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And that's
Yeah.
true. And it's not just from a knowledge standpoint, it's also from like a nervous system standpoint and like that nonverbal communication that takes place between us. So if you are constantly around people that are stressed and in lack and scarcity mode and in fear mode, that is going to have a nonverbal impact on your energetic field, your nervous system, and it is going to do something to you chemically. Now, the other thing that I think we don't always think about either is that when you are around these people, you're not just looking at people who are incredibly successful. In one way, shape, or form, they are reflecting parts of you back to you. So we tend to look at them from a place of lack as well. And I know that I did that for many years. And I was working in law firms and very large development firms and offshore finance. And I'm surrounded by people that are making 20, 30, 40, $50 million bonuses going, oh my God, thinking that I didn't deserve to be there, not understanding that I had inherent and intrinsic value because I was creating something when I was in those spaces that hadn't
Right.
existed before. And it took a very special skill set. But I also didn't know the difference between my skills and my talents. So I was assigning my worth to other people, not understanding that they were actually extracting my value because they saw what I couldn't see. And I
Right.
think a lot of people don't see that with themselves either. We tend to become very insecure and shameful when we're in situations, especially growing up with not having a lot. I'm in the same boat. You tend to become very insecure in those spaces because you think you're less
Absolutely.
than and you just don't see your own beauty that's being reflected back to you. So I love that you're in that space now, that you're like, hell yeah, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, around the people that I'm supposed to be around, and it's helping me get to where I need to go.
Absolutely. And it's hard, right? Like it's not like it just came out of nowhere. I mean, it took years of deconditioning to get to that point, right? Because, it for a long time it was the woe is me mindset. And I would never talk about like where I came from. And, I would always talk about like the past like 10 or so years of my life, because the past 10 years of my life have been really difficult. And I would always focus on that. And then it was always being told, why don't you ever talk about your childhood? I'm like, well, because nobody wants to hear about, my tragic childhood. But it's the childhood that put me where I am. And, you know, using that as my superpower, saying that this is where I came from and this is where I want to go. And it's funny because I was having another conversation about, well, you came from this, so that clearly was your superpower, and you used all of these obstacles that you had to overcome to be where you are now. How are your children going to learn to have the same energy and values that you have if they've never or will never go through something tragic? And I was like, oh shit, I don't know how to answer that question. And I was really taken back because I never actually thought about that. I never actually thought about, I became the person that I am because of what I had to go through. Now my children will never have to go through, like my kids have everything they need. I mean, even things that they want. And, I'm a firm believer, don't give them anything they want, just give them everything they need. And so like they have to work really hard to have those because they have grandparents and stuff that spoil them rotten. The kids are spoiled rotten. But I can only hope that all of the things that I do on a daily basis will show my children why and how to be a good human. I make sure my kids volunteer. I make sure that I bring them to places that they knew how I was brought up, and they know why I do the things that I do. And I try to subject them to, seeing what the world is truly like and why we're good people, and why we need to learn and grow. And I think it's going to be a learning curve as we continue to do it. But I can only hope that by me telling my story, my kids will understand why they need to be good human beings so they can continue to show that. And I think that that's so important because sometimes my kids are privileged. Like I would be lying if I said that my kids weren't, but that's because I wanted to create a life for them so they would never have to go through what I went through. And I really hope that they learn from that. My daughter was super cute. We were in San Diego a few months ago, and there's a lot of poor people living in tents. And she was, Mom, I really just want to go give them some money so we can help them get out of living in a tent and they can live in a real house and take a shower. And she goes, when I get older, I just want to give them my money so they can get off the streets. And I looked at her and I was like, baby, that's not how this works. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, if you just give them money to get off the streets, I'm like, will they be using that to the right advantages? And she's like, I don't know. And she's only 10 and a half. And I looked at her and I said, well, what if you offer them an opportunity? And she's like, well, explain. So I go, instead of giving them money, what if you offered them a job opportunity? What if you offered them the opportunity to earn that money so they can turn around and they can change their lives? Because some of those people may not want to do that. But if you offer an opportunity to somebody, they're more apt to take it and work for it than they are to do something different. And it's why I do what I do in business. It's to give back. And I get goosebumps when I say it, because I I had people who believed in me that gave me an opportunity, which I was able to create something. So that was such a learning experience for me to say to my kids, give them an opportunity, don't give them the money, and that's hard, right? When people are panhandling and they're asking for money and you want to give it to them. My first response is like, hey, I have a Powerade. I always have extra snacks in the car. I always have extra things. I actually give money to those who are willing to take the snack. So, and I know that that sounds kind of silly for me to say, but like, I want to know, like, there are a lot of people out there that don't have good intentions, but if I know that there's someone who is willing to take an opportunity, those are the people who are going to work for it. And my daughter's like, wow, mom, that makes some serious sense. So I'm going to start a company so I can help other people like live better lives. And like, okay, this is working. So I digress, but
In that comment, so what I heard when you said your kids aren't going to know struggle because they're not living the same life that you did, how are they going to appreciate it? We hear the same comments in business as well. And it's actually what's perpetuated incredibly toxic cultures inside of businesses, which is, I had to struggle and pay my dues, so you do as well. And it actually perpetuates a trauma. And we want to be able to cycle break because we want to be able to give our children what they need to not struggle the way that we had to. But it doesn't mean that through eliminating some of those struggles that they're still not going to learn their lessons that they're
right.
here to learn. And I think that is, I'm glad you answered it the way that you did, because I know when I was working in business and it was something, this is where I can get a little controversial sometimes, where I get angry kind of about the feminist culture that's kind of taken place and rooted inside of corporations, is that in the corporations that I've been in, I've actually been harmed psychologically and mentally and emotionally more by the women that I worked for and were mentored by than any of the
Yep.
men that existed in those corporations. And it had to do with them perpetuating the experience of, you have to go through what I went through, and then no one's actually getting out from under it. And there's like this weird re-victimization that keeps happening, which actually maintains the victim consciousness that I believe during this time in evolution we are here to transcend, to get out of that mindset of, I'm the victim and I'm caught in this loop, and figure out how to get into a spiral where we're just constantly moving up and up and up.
Right.
And I just love that you brought that up, because I do think it's really important. And we don't often think about how we keep ourselves in cycles, both consciously and unconsciously, in all aspects of our life. And, that
Right.
was an example for business. And you gave a beautiful example inside of parenting as well.
And I went through that in business too, and working in corporations, and you are absolutely right how that happens, because the mindset is, especially now, younger generation is graduating from college and they have the management mindset. So their cycle is already starting to break. They're coming out and they're like, I have the skill sets. And older companies are like, who the hell do they think they are coming in with this mindset? The cycle has to break from that mindset, because my thought is, I'm looking at skill sets. I'm not looking at your age. I'm looking at your skill sets. I'm looking at your experience. If you don't have the experience, how can I give you the experience to make you more marketable, and then use your skill sets to that advantage? Every person that works for me, someone else had this conversation with me about a very wealthy businessman and how he creates his business. And I was compared to them and I was like, oh, maybe I'm on the right track. But when we were talking about business and someone comes to me, it's not, oh, you have the lower rung on, in this because, you're just starting and you don't deserve something higher. My thought is, if I can take a skill set and offer you an opportunity, maybe we make it a hybrid type of job. Maybe we give you an opportunity in between something, create a position in order to, elevate you, to make you feel like, you are worth what you are worth, and give you different parts of the business. Everything, every position in every company, with the exception, I mean, childcare providers, when we're placing them, are different, or cleaners and stuff like that. But internal positions that I can kind of take different skill sets and move them around and shift them are going to give people an opportunity to not make them feel like that they're the lower person on the totem pole, because that mentality is, it's degrading, and it makes you feel like you're not worth it. It makes you feel like you're not making enough money. At the end of the day, I think you need to be valued for what you bring to the table, and not how long you've been doing it, or because of your gender or anything like that. And it's a hard mentality to break, because I felt that with women in the workplace too. And I I think everybody deserves an opportunity to feel as though they're equal, no matter what your job is. Like, even when I started the clean company, I was cleaning toilets alongside other cleaners that I'm paying to do this, because I want them to see that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not I own the company, or if you're a cleaner, we both do the exact same job. I'll clean a toilet. I don't really care, you know?
No, I think that's really important. And I'm kind of doing something similar in the work that I'm pulling together right now. And it's kind of getting out of that mentality of a hierarchy. And it's also stepping into the role, and you're demonstrating it, of you're always the student and you're always the teacher. It's a matter of knowing what hat to wear when.
Right.
And for me, it's also, we have to look, when we're thinking of hierarchy and we're thinking of leadership, I'm really passionate about this idea of like resurrecting elderhood, but elderhood not as the noun, as a verb, a function of society that we are missing desperately. And it's because right now we look at elders and it's like this anointed and appointed title that you get when you reach a certain age, but it's not indicative of wisdom and knowledge. And I've met 5-year-olds that have more wisdom than a 70-year-old in some respects. And it's, how do we start extracting? Basically, it's really, how do you learn how to learn? Because we're really great at taking in information, but nobody really knows how to learn it. And for me, information just creates a density in the body if it's not
Mhm.
actively put into action. And then you don't know if the information you're being fed is valuable or wise if you're not actually applying it yourself. And then it's through
Right.
that application that you gain knowledge. And then over time, that knowledge gets distilled into wisdom. And it's this process that we've lost. And I'm finding these beautiful wild unicorns all over the world, and they understand it and they get it and they want to mentor and they want to continue to learn, and they understand that it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship that you have from the moment that you're born until the moment that you die. And to me, like, that is the future of business. That is the future of commerce. That's the future of community building. It's getting into that mindset. And you were talking about it earlier about switching hats. Like, who am I right now? I don't know which hat I'm wearing. And over the past couple of years, I was teaching capacity, jurisdiction, and contracts. It's like, who are you? Who are they? Where is everyone standing? And what are the contracts and agreements that exist between us? Because that is how the world is built. And we don't understand it. And because we don't know
Right.
who we are. And when you start to realize, oh, I actually wear multiple hats and I have to learn how to harness the power of each of those hats, when to put it on, when to take it off, when to speak, when to listen, that is your superpower. And
Oh, yeah.
I say they in air quotes, as in the corporations, the governments, the structures that have built our kind of constructed reality, they get it. They understand it. So that barrier that exists between the us and them, the haves and the have-nots, is literally a knowledge gap. It's not financial. And the quicker that we can kind of catch up and start to embody that, like, everything has the ability to change on the dime and very quickly.
Absolutely. And that's super powerful. And I think if enough of us like kind of open up to actually accept that, so many things can change. And it could be a beautiful thing. And it's hard to get out of that mindset, right? But I think if enough people start to make that shift, we'll have a positive impact on others that will create that and create that cascade effect.
And I like that you're also, because you were talking about a business earlier, and you're like, oh, it's kind of similar, but it's different. it's also moving out of that competition mindset and into collaboration and understanding that there really
That's
is
right.
no competition. There's only collaboration. And that's a deep sister wound as well inside of women, is being inside of competition with each other. And when we can learn to step out of it and raise each other up instead, that is a whole other level that we can transcend into in terms of the ability to start generating wealth for our families and our communities.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm happy that you brought that back up, right? Because that is just like my motto. And from the first conversation that we had, right out the gate in the first 5 minutes, you were saying the same things that I believe in, right? I believe in collaboration over competition. I always say, if you think you're in competition with me, I've already won, because I don't believe in competition. Competition with myself and my brothers, they're a little different. But when it really comes down to, everybody else around me, I truly believe from the bottom of my soul that collaboration is the only way to go. Competition cannot exist in order for us to coexist. Because if we collaborate, two different people who own the same business can both thrive, because we have different skill sets. If we're located in different places, even if we're located in the same position, same place, I know other people who have cleaning companies that will come to me and ask me for business advice. They're one town over. We service the same areas, and they'll come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm having a really hard time with hiring. Do you have any suggestions?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's have a conversation." Because at the end of the day, I can never service the entire state. I can't service the entire area. I don't have the means. And even if I did, not everybody's going to want me to be in their house. There's somebody for everybody. And if we're all so different, it's my personality that attracts certain clients and vice versa. And I think if everyone realizes that we all have something different to bring to the table, we can bring the same businesses together. I mean, there's no coincidence that Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts are in the same parking lot, because I'm a Starbucks girl and you may like Dunkin' Donuts. Like, we're two completely different types of coffee. And when people realize that there's no competition, things start to change.
100%. 100%. And it's also like a mindset shift too, because I think what we're fed all of the time is we see these hyper entrepreneurs where we are constantly fed like the 1%, but what is that really? But you're seeing like the Bill Gates and the why can't I think of his name? Jeff Bezos of the world, where they hold these mega empires. We don't need that. You can have an incredibly profitable business and live very comfortably with 100 clients, depending on what you're doing. You could do it with 20 clients. And I think it's because we're so used to seeing these highlight reels everywhere. It's like, how do we just really bring it back in and go, what do I really need? And what is a valuable life for me as well? Like, okay, so I have all of these businesses and I'm trying to stretch myself, across all of these sectors potentially. But am I able to, move my body the way I want to? Can I get outside in nature? Am I spending time with my family? Am I finding the balance that I want as well? And I don't think we often think of that as being valuable, and having a certain net worth to it as well. And I know that you're
Absolutely.
yeah, because you're incredibly active. And I know you, like I said at the beginning, you just recently ran the Boston Marathon and you have a family and you have children. So there's always like these different mitigating factors that all need to come into play
Right.
when we're thinking about what our wealth is overall.
Right. And why we do what we do, right? And it's why I always bring everything back to, why do we do what we do? And why do I do what I do? Why do I set my schedule the way that I set my schedule? Every conversation that I have, it gets brought up at least once. I teach scheduling and time management. Why do I teach it? Because I understand that you have to shut off at certain parts of the day in order to live the life that you want to live. If I want to live the life that I want to live and be happy, I may have to work from 9 to 5. Again, I make myself accessible 9 to 5. I do work earlier and sometimes a little bit later, but I always make sure that I am at all the sports things for my kids. I make sure that, we went to the beach on Sunday. Yesterday we went to a cookout and we did all the things. I could easily work every day. I have mounds and mounds of work. I look to see what's the most important things that I got to get done today. And if I can't do it today, that will be the most important thing tomorrow, because my family is the most important thing. My kids are the most important thing. You look at all these mega entrepreneurs, like you said. And let's look at it statistically speaking. How many of them get divorced? Just saying, how many of them do their wives leave them? Superstars, athletes, whoever these people may be, they are workaholics, and I'm a workaholic to the core. But I understand that if I do not create some type of balance, that I am not going to actually have the valuable life that I want to live. And if that means my money is in my assets, which are my children, that's more valuable to me. I'd rather have a little less money in the bank and have a little bit more of a relationship with my kids than be super rich and have no relationship. I mean, it's a give and take.
Thank you. I love that. And I think it's so important to drive home because usually when we're starting businesses, and we're in the early days, we are just thinking of that revenue generation, and because it's important. But again, it's the revenue across all sectors of your life. You got to look at the ledger and make sure
Yeah.
that you have more than just your bills and your business on there. You have to have all aspects of your life in that ledger.
You do. And at the beginning, do you have to work harder? Yes. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't working 80 plus weeks when I first started. But at the same time, I had to learn how to shut it off, even if it was for a day, even if it was for 2 days, whatever that looks like for you, to just find some type of downtime and create that inner peace. Because, I'll always bring back to, why are we doing what we're doing? And just constantly ask yourself that. If there's anything the listeners learned today, is, why are we doing what we're doing? And where do we truly find value in our life? Because if you're looking for just $1, hey, go for it. You want to work 100 hours a week. You don't want to have a relationship with your significant other. You don't want to have a relationship with your kids. I'm not saying not to do it, but if that's the life that you want to create, I'm not discounting it. Do whatever makes you happy. But at the end of the day, sit down and say, what are the things that make me happy? Why do I do the things that I do? And what will bring me joy? Because at the end of the day, you can drop dead tomorrow. Did you live the life that you want to live? So if you ask yourself, did I live the life I want to live? And if there is hesitation, the hesitation is what needs to change.
Yeah, I've lived that. I went through severe burnout and I literally had to burn my life to the ground and rebuild
Yep.
it, but rebuild it from a place of, do I want this? Do I not want this? And that was
Yep.
the most confronting experience I've ever had to go through. And one of the reasons why I do what I do now, and I have the podcast and I like to kind of talk about my story, not dwell in it or live in it, but it's like you can learn from a metaphor or a 2x4. And if you can hear something inside of my story that, prevents you from hitting the depths of burnout that I did, beautiful, wonderful. If you can get that level of awareness that makes you go, oof, maybe it's time to reevaluate. Doesn't mean that you're not going to hit rock bottom somewhere else. And I think that there's tremendous value in that, because that's how you start to create a stable foundation that becomes unshakable moving forward, because it's cyclical. We're always going to have these dark nights. We're always going to have these challenges, but how quickly we're able to move through them, and with the amount of ease and grace, that's a
Right.
skill that's a life skill. It's a tangible, valuable life skill that we need to learn. We need to learn how to be uncomfortable, or get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and really learn how to kind of sit in our own shit sometimes so that we can move out of it. It's not permanent.
Right.
It's always just temporary. And I'm sure you see that in
Everything
business
is
all the
temporary.
time. Everything is temporary. So
Yep.
like when people come to you, um, what are you looking for through like EPICS 47? Like if someone's like, hey, Jen, I have a business idea. Do you have like a certain process that you go through? I know you said it's highly intuitive as well. So
Yes.
what are you looking for?
It's looking for the person who has that visionary mindset, but has this really great idea for a business, but doesn't know how to get started. Those are my favorite people to work with. Someone who has more drive than me. And I always kind of kid around when I say that. I will only work with someone who is willing to work harder than me. Most people, and I'm being very honest when I say this, most people don't work as hard as I do. And that's only because I work smarter, not harder. But, having the mindset of, I am going to take on the world. I am going to create this business. This is going to be, the reason for my existence. I want someone who has the drive, because my job is to teach them a skill set and let them continue going. I want someone who really, really wants it. Like I've met with people who are like, yeah, I really want to start this business, but I know that if I only have like 6 clients, that I could live a comfortable lifestyle. And then once I hit that, like I'm good. I don't really need anything else. I only need to work 10 hours a week. And, that's great. I can give you business advice, but at the end of the day, your business is just sustainable. And if being sustainable is the only thing that makes you happy, I can help you. But my goal is to make you profitable. My goal is to exceed your expectations for you to grow your legacy. Having a sustainable business isn't necessarily a legacy in my mind. It's creating a comfortable lifestyle. And if you're comfortable with that, I'm fine with that. But I have a visionary mindset. And every time someone comes to me, I'm like, franchise. And then it's like, bring it back a little bit because I see like the bigger picture with businesses. And not everybody wants the bigger picture, but working with someone who has a drive is the person that I need to work with. Most of my clients have ADHD, just like myself, because I understand them. I understand how they think and I understand how to mold them. Because I have such severe ADHD, I was always like, yeah, I mean, obviously I wear a lot of hats, but I'm like, ding, 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 ding. And I didn't know how to hone it in. And then I met with someone who really helped me with my time management skills. And my time management skills really honed in all of my power into a shorter period of time. And I became successful because I understood the value of time. When I'm on a client call, I take my phone and I turn it upside down. When we're recording and I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not looking at my messages, I'm shut off to the world. When I take my downtime, my phone is on silent. After 5 o'clock, my phone is on silent. I don't respond to messages, personal and business. I'm trying to be very intentional with the way that I do things. I actually schedule my text messaging time. So, when we get off this call, I'm like, oh, that's my time to go and check all of my text messages, send out all the messages, and then I'll check them again at 4 o'clock. Now I'll check in case there's an emergency, but if it's not an emergency, don't expect me to respond back right away. And I do that with my emails. I do that with my text messages. I do that with my clients, and it allows me to be more efficient. So working with people who have that drive, who understand the importance of efficiency and importance of growing, I think are the best people that I love to work with.
Yeah, I like your boundaries around your time as well. And that can also weed out the people that you do and do not work with, because some people throw little
Yep.
ego tantrums when you don't respond to them right away. And
Yep.
that's not okay either. So I really appreciate that. And what I'm also gathering from that is you're not sector or industry specific. You're just looking for, because you don't need to have the institutional knowledge for what you're doing. Your systems, your process, your
Right, because
vision.
they're the ones that they understand the industry, right? I don't need to understand the industry in order to make a business successful. I understand that at the backbone, just like all of us at the core, we have the same exact skeleton, right? But we all are completely different. So if you take that same mindset, the backbone is exactly the same in business. And if you really understand how to create a successful business model, all of the other businesses, no matter what they are, can work off of that same type of model. And that's what makes sense to me in my head. A business is a business. Your knowledge is what makes you the business. And that's not me. Will I learn a skill set while doing it? Absolutely. I have so many licenses and skill sets for things that I don't necessarily need to use in the course of a day, but it's that knowledge that brings me to the next business and the next connection to grow those things.
That's beautiful. And I think that really kind of wraps up this conversation really well, because essentially, like, you are your own gold mine. Like, go back into yourself, mine your experience, look at your life experience, look at your business experience, look at your educational experience. And within that beautiful kind of synthesis of everything that you've experienced throughout your life, everyone has a business inside of them.
That's so
Everyone
true.
has
It's
it.
so true. They
Yeah.
really do.
Beautiful. If people want to get in touch with you, Jen, how can they find you?
Yeah, of course. So you can email me at jen@epic47.com. You can check out epic47.com as well. If you look me up on any social media handle, it's usually Jen Live Your Best Life, because I am a firm believer in, putting that out to the universe every day. I live the life that I want to live. So that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your energy and your passion and your enthusiasm with the Grand
Sure.
Rising experience. And it's incredibly inspirational. And again, I don't believe in coincidences. You came in and just spoke about something I literally just had a meeting on. So
See, I don't believe in coincidence either. So it definitely was meant to happen.
As we move deeper into this digital renaissance and the ideas and beliefs and concepts around entrepreneurship continue to rapidly evolve, it gives many the opportunity to dissolve these long-held beliefs that they're not able to earn an income outside of a paycheck. It's a beautiful time to be alive in this creator economy where your potential to earn is literally only determined by your ability to birth your ideas into being. And knowing that venture builders exist and this Skillshare economy exists, if you are willing to step out of competition and into collaboration, means that you can create the reality of your dreams at any moment. You just have to learn how to believe and trust in yourself. And if self-trust is something that you struggle with, I am building a beautiful community inside of the portal full of like-minded, like-hearted men and women and mentors from all over the world that can provide you with the tools and guidance that allow you to claim and embody the truth of who you are. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to the Grand Rising Experience podcast. You can do that wherever you are currently listening or at grandrisingexperience.substack.com. Again, thank you so much for being here. Until next time, I love you.